right, the first half of the 2024 season is in the books. Welcome in to Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, July 15th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Today on the show, we have waiver wire ads from the weekend for pitchers who are slowing down, hitters who are picking things up in July, and much more. But let's jump in.
That ball had a family!
You recognize that voice. That is the Reds TV broadcast. There are lots of baseballs being crushed in Cincinnati right now, Chris. I will turn it over to you, your player of the weekend.
I mean, how could it be anybody but Rece Hinds, the greatest power hitter in the history of professional baseball? I mean, this guy is just absurdly locked in right now. What is it? 5 homers in his first 8 major league games. We knew that he had incredible raw power. What's been impressive is to see how consistently he's put that into action already so far in the majors. 5 homers in 8 games, 11 RBI. He had a grand slam on Friday, and he's not actually striking out that much. 7 times in 28 plate appearances. I mean, we are talking across the board, just minuscule sample sizes here. So I don't think we can say anything with certainty about Rece Hinds. But what I will say, and this is something that I wrote in the waiver wire column on Sunday on CBS Sports, is just, especially if you are low in the standings, I think you've got to start doing some high variance stuff to try to make up ground. And one of those things would be taking a player like Rece Hinds, who is showing difference-making potential. I think Lawrence Butler is also, we'll talk about him shortly, but also another guy that you can say this about, where the likeliest outcome is this is another Aristides Aquino. And, you know, remember, he had 11 homers in his first 16 games, I think it was, for Aquino, and it didn't end up lasting. And my best guess is Rece Hinds won't be able to make this last. He is chasing on 46% of the pitches thrown out of the zone this year. The major league average is 28%. So really bad plate discipline. He's actually not swinging and missing as much as you might expect. A little more than league average, but really not that bad because he's crushing everything inside the zone, including, this is hilarious, breaking balls. You usually see guys get about 50 to 60% fastballs, 25 to 30% breaking balls, and maybe 10 to 15% off-speed pitches. Rece Hinds has seen 45% of his pitches have been breaking balls so far this season, and he is demolishing them. 100 mile per hour average exit velocity when he makes contact with a breaking ball, a 1298 expected slugging percentage. He is just, it's, again, the sample sizes are all way too small to draw any conclusions from, but the power here is legitimately top of scale. And again, while I think that he's likely to see significant regression moving forward to the point where I might say the likeliest outcome with Rece Hinds is in a month, he's less than 50% roster. But if he's a 35 homer guy and can hit 250 even, that's probably a difference-making fantasy player for the rest of the way. I don't know how many more opportunities you won't really get to add a player like that, so I think you do have to take that chance on Rece Hinds, especially if you need to flip the scripts in some way.
Yeah, what he's done so far is just stupid. There's no other way to say it. He hit a grand slam on Friday, as you mentioned, 2 more homers on Saturday. Rece Hinds so far 11 for 26. It's a 423 batting average, 5 homers, 11 RBI, 2 steals, a 1656 OPS. Incredibly small sample size. The raw power, according to Fangraphs, 70 grade raw power. Mm-hmm. So the power is legit. He obviously has flashed some speed. It also comes with a projected 40 hit tool on Fangraphs. So,
I mean, and just to, like, he was at AAA this year
with a 38%
strikeout rate. Yeah. I don't think he had a 700 OPS in AAA, despite, I think, 18 to 20 homers or something like that. So, yeah, like, again, the likeliest outcome here is probably that Rece Hinds ends up swinging and missing way too much to make this work. But right now, he's making a ton of contact on pitches in the strike zone. And I think you got to just take the chance and ride it out.
We were talking beforehand. I don't remember seeing any player go from 1% rostered up to 60% this fast in 1 week on CBS, and weekly waivers haven't even run yet.
Yeah, no,
So,
he's got to be 90% after tonight.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, again, the most likely outcome, the strikeouts are going to, they're going to come up, I think. And, that's obviously going to make things a little bit tougher in a points league.
Mm-hmm.
I think in categories, any 5 outfielder leagues, like 100%, take a shot. Let's see where it goes. Points leagues, as shallow as they are, I look at some of my points leagues and some of the outfielders that are out there. There's still a lot of really good talent.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you absolutely need to go out and add a Rece Hinds in a points league, but man, any categories league, anywhere where you're not penalized for strikeouts, if you need power, it obviously makes a ton of sense to be aggressive with someone like Rece Hinds. What about Lawrence Butler, who is also on fire right now? Did not start on Friday, but came on, hit a pinch hit home run. Then on Sunday, 3 for 6 with a triple dong, 3 homers in 1 game, 6 RBI. He has hit leadoff 2 games in a row. And over his last 13 games, batting .326 with 7 homers, 17 RBI, 3 steals, a 26% strikeout rate. So obviously that's fine. If he can maintain that, that would be an okay level. 93 mile per hour average exit velocity. So another player here where we've seen it in the minors. There are tools. He hits the ball hard. There is speed. It's an interesting combination of, I believe he's played some outfield, some first base in the minors, probably only going to play outfield here with Oakland. But another player who is red hot, Chris, if you had to choose between the two, who would you go, Rece Hinds or Lawrence Butler?
I would go with Hinds. I think a big part of that is probably just because if you don't add Lawrence Butler this week, there's a chance he doesn't get claimed in your league. I think it's extremely unlikely Rece Hinds doesn't get claimed in any leagues this week. So just from that perspective, I think Hinds is, and also just while there's a lot to like about Lawrence Butler, even before this stretch, he's put up really solid underlying numbers. Average exit velocity 91.7 miles per hour. He's a good athlete. He hits the ball hard. He has 22 plate appearances against lefties, and he has struck out in 9 of them. This is a true platoon bat. I don't think the A's expect him to grow into anything more than a platoon bat. They're certainly not treating him as if they do. And so that's going to put a cap on how valuable he can be. But I think Lawrence Butler is certainly someone who, if he finished the season with a 25-10 pace, which after this week, he's not that far off. I mean, the homers aren't there, but he's got the potential for it. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a 25-10 guy.
Yeah, and the roster rates are not even close at this point. As we mentioned, Hinds is all the way up to 61%. Lawrence Butler is 6% rostered. So he is widely available. He is likely going to be out there in 15-team roto leagues, obviously 12-team roto leagues with 5 outfielders. So if you have somebody boring, I was going through putting some of my claims in, like a Charlie Blackmon, I would go ahead and
that's easy
for Lawrence Butler just to see, catch lightning in a bottle, see how much upside is there. But man, what he's doing right now, the Oakland A's in general, I mean,
can I share with you the wildest stat in baseball this season?
Yes, you can.
Here are the amount of games with 18 runs scored or more this season per team. First place, Oakland Athletics with 3.
Wow.
In a 29-place tie for second place, every team in baseball with 0. There have been 3 games of 18-plus runs scored this year, and the A's have all 3 of them. They are 37-61. They are 24th in the majors in runs scored. That is insane.
Yeah, that is so crazy. Just think about,
I've never seen something like that.
24th in runs scored, and they have 3 games of at least 18 runs. It's bonkers. Yeah. I mean, that was my next point, is that the A's lineup can surprise you. We're seeing some things from, Zach Geloff has hit well over the past month, and Brent Rooker is all of a sudden red hot once again. So, it's not a good lineup, but they can surprise you and they can put up runs here or there. So I think all in all, we obviously expect the Reds lineup and team to be much better context than Oakland. So yes, I would take Rece Hinds over Butler, but yeah, 5 outfielder leagues. This is a good weekend to go out and make claims because I think both of those guys are in play. Quick reminder to sign up for the FBT newsletter if you haven't already. If you're watching on YouTube, you can scan that QR code. That will take you right to the website where you punch in your email address. You click on the FBT logo first, you punch in your email address, and it's easy as that. You will get an FBT newsletter delivered right to your inbox for free every single weekday. And I wanted to remind people of the programming schedule for this upcoming week. It is the All-Star break, but we will still have one podcast per week. We're not going anywhere. On Monday, today, when you're listening to this, I will be live with our buddy, The Welsh. That's right. He's back. We're going live at 4 p.m. Eastern time to recap the first round of the MLB draft. We will get some thoughts on early first-year player draft rankings for Dynasty. And I think overall, just names, you might need to know some of these names as soon as next year. I mean, we saw Wyatt Langford and Paul Skeens get drafted last year. Not that I think there is a Paul Skeens in this draft, but I think the first 7 or 8 picks of this draft were all college bats. So we could see some of those names sooner rather than later. So again, on Monday, the Welsh and I live at 4 p.m. Eastern time. On Tuesday, Chris, Scott, and myself, we will be live on the CBS Sports Network with an All-Star Game special. That will be at noon Eastern time. So you can watch that on the CBS Sports app or on your cable provider. On Wednesday, we will record a redraft of the first 2 rounds, rest of season. And Thursday, we will preview the following week of action. And then Friday, boom, we're right back in it. Live games are back, and that will be the start of the second half of the season. Let's take our first break, and when we return, some news and notes right after this.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
Welcome back into the news and notes. Garrett Crochet was lifted after just 2 perfect innings on Friday, and this is a pretty interesting development here, Chris. Manager Pedro Grifol said Crochet would be on a pitch count, but we didn't think it would be 28 pitches worth, so only 2 innings worth of action there. I wonder if they're just trying to be extra cautious and keep him healthy leading up to the trade deadline, and then if he's still on the team, maybe they they pull back a little bit. They let him, go deeper into his starts. Or if he gets traded to another team, my guess is that team will be more aggressive and just let him pitch like a starter. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally unknowable. I know you're coming to us hoping we have the answers to this, but this is one of those things where we can have hunches, we can have guesses, but Garrett Crochet does still have, I think, 2 years left of club control after this one. So it's not like he's an expiring contract where teams don't have to think about the long term at all with him. My guess is he's limited either way in some way. And this was frustrating, certainly. Only 2 innings. That's frustrating. We got a lot of panic tweets about it on Friday evening, and I'm just hoping that it's 85 pitches most of the time is the limit. But there are probably going to be more situations like this where they pull him extra early. I think with the break coming up, that was obviously a bit of an outlier. But I think there are going to be times when this is pretty frustrating for both Garrett Crochet and Luis Heel, I think, who should be in a similar spot.
Yeah, as we've said all season with Garrett Crochet, we figured at some point innings could become a problem for him. He's up to 107 1/3. Entering this season, he had 73 career innings, 12 2/3 of those just last year. So he's already made a massive jump. We haven't seen it affect his production. He's still been amazing, but I understand why the White Sox are either trying to protect this investment for their future or to protect it and trade it to someone else and obviously get a huge package there in return. Zach Wheeler played catch in the outfield on Sunday and is expected to make his next start for the Phillies on either July 22nd or 23rd against the Twins. Mookie Betts has begun taking soft ground balls. According to Dave Roberts, Betts is working his way back from a broken left hand. The Dodgers transferred Yoshinobu Yamamoto to the 60-day IL on Saturday, meaning he won't be eligible for activation until August 15th. Kodai Senga made another rehab start at AAA on Sunday, 4 1/3 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts. He had 10 whiffs on 66 pitches. Fastball velocity was down 1 mile per hour, but at this point of his build-up period, I think that's within the range of outcomes, and I think it's totally fine. He's up to 86% rostered. I think we probably see him by the end of July up with the New York Mets. Devin Williams looked amazing in his first rehab outing at High A on Sunday. He struck out all 3 batters that he faced, up to 68% rostered. My guess is shortly after the All-Star break, we could see Devin Williams back with the Milwaukee Brewers. He has to just jump right back into the closer role, right? I mean, someone of his stature, I think that has to happen, right?
He only really had like a year and a half as the closer. You know, it's not like we're talking about Kenley Jansen or some, you know, it's not a guy who's been here for
arguably the best closer in baseball.
Yeah, no, I my guess would be 1 or 2 to work him in, get him comfortable. That's usually what you see after a long layoff like this. But yeah, I think as long as Devin Williams looks like himself, I think he's going to be the closer very, very soon.
Which is really unfortunate for Trevor McGill because he has had a fantastic season. It's nothing that he's done wrong. It's just, again, Devin Williams has kind of built himself up to that status where he deserves to get back into the closer role. Ranger Suarez will not be available for the All-Star game while he recovers from back tightness, but the Phillies expect him to be available to make his first start of the second half, either July 22nd or 23rd. My guess is whichever one of those days Zach Wheeler does not start. More on Ranger Suarez in a little bit. Bo Bichette has missed 3 straight due to a strained right calf. Carlos Correa was scratched Saturday due to a bruised right heel, and he was out of the lineup Sunday as well. Scares me a little bit, Chris, because he has that history with, the foot injuries. So
what I saw was MRI did show plantar fasciitis in the right heel. However, it's worth noting it's a different foot than the one that bothered him last year. And last year it was very obvious when he was less than 100%. This year he's been crushing the ball throughout. So hopefully it's not as serious and something he'll be able to play through without issue. But given his, I think you obviously have to be concerned.
Giancarlo Stanton won't be reinstated from the IL for the start of the second half on Friday, but he could be activated soon thereafter. Clayton Kershaw tossed 3 hitless innings at AAA on Saturday, striking out 5. He's aiming for 4 to 5 innings in his next rehab start. If he throws 5 innings, maybe he's back in the Dodgers rotation after that. They are desperate for arms right now, so it would not surprise me. Justin, anything you wanted to add on Kershaw?
No, go ahead.
Justin Verlander threw 25 pitches in a bullpen session Sunday, his first time working off a mound since going on the IL with that neck injury. David Bednar was activated from the IL Friday and immediately recorded a save. Jazz Chisholm started at second base on Sunday, his first start in the infield since 2022. It sounds like teams interested in trading for Jazz want to see that he could still play second base. So
didn't we talk about this last week, him possibly playing some infield?
Yeah.
I feel like we did. We're gonna take credit for that.
Yeah. I think we have we inspired this move. Yeah, makes sense. TJ Friedel will head to the club's training facility in Arizona this week to increase his baseball activities and is trending toward a July 26th return, 59% rostered. And we did our sleepers, breakouts, and busts for the second half last Friday now at this point, or I guess 2 Fridays ago. And TJ Friedel is one of my sleepers. So if you need outfield help, I think now is the time to stash him. Rangers manager Bruce Bochy said Josh Young is aiming to start a rehab assignment following the All-Star break. Young suffered a setback on his surgically repaired right wrist, actually multiple setbacks at this point. Max Muncy is still not swinging a bat and is unlikely to return until at least August. He's been out since May 17th with a right oblique strain, another one who has suffered multiple setbacks with that injury. Xander Bogaerts made his return on Friday, and he started 2 out of 3 games, so they're bringing him along a little bit slowly here, but could be a nice boost there in the second half. Nolan Jones was placed in the IL with a lower back strain. Jose Miranda was placed in the IL due to lower back stiffness. Heston Kjerstad was hit in the head with a pitch on Friday and was placed on the 7-day concussion IL on Saturday. This remains a huge issue, Chris. It's not, we're talking about guys getting hit in the head, hands, wrist. It feels like every time we come on here, it's,
and this one, it was rainy situation. Like it was just, I think a worst case scenario in that regard. Luckily, while he is on the IL, it sounds like, I mean, it hit the helmet at least, so it wasn't the worst case scenario. But yeah, that was pretty scary.
And Clay Holmes has just pretty bad control as it is. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think there was any intent behind it. But the fact is that these things keep happening. And I remain, they need to pre-tack the baseballs or do something and figure this out in the offseason because it has been a big problem. The Dodgers are expected to promote pitching prospect River Ryan after the All-Star break. And this season in the minors, a 2.21 ERA, a .98 whip, 27 strikeouts over 20 and a third. So a pretty small sample size. He has not gone more than 5 innings. He's only gone more than 5 innings once, and he's 6% rostered. I think he might pitch out of the bullpen, but anything here, Chris? Deeper leagues, maybe NL only River Ryan?
Yeah, I think he's worth a look. I mean, this is a Dodgers team that has, 6, 7, 8 pitchers on the IL right now. Obviously, the rotation could become crowded fairly quickly if Clayton Kershaw, Bobby Miller, Walker Buehler, like none of those guys seem like they're too far away from coming back. But with the way this season has gone, I think anyone who gets in the rotation for the Dodgers has a chance to stick if, certainly River Ryan, who's someone who is very talented, has come on really strong. He was drafted as a two-way player, 11th round pick by the Padres back in 2021. And he really came on fast last year. He's one of the Dodgers' top 5, top 3 prospects, perhaps across the board. So it's, I'm pretty interested to see what he looks like whenever he gets his opportunity. But like, they let Brent Honeywell go 3 innings today. Like this team, which like I'm kind of intrigued by. Like, this is like you got to be in like a 15-team NL only league. But I'm kind of interested in seeing Brent Honeywell starting for the Dodgers. He threw
crazy.
a screwball a bunch today. Well, not a bunch. He threw it like 8 times.
They just picked him up off waivers. He was on the, I think the Pirates last week. Yeah. So it's just, like we said, the Dodgers are desperate for arms right now. So perhaps River Ryan could factor into some of those deeper leagues. Christian Encarnacion Strand underwent surgery to repair ligaments in his fractured right wrist on Thursday. The Phillies released Whit Merrifield on Friday. He was batting just 199 with a 572 OPS. The Orioles optioned Cade Povich to AAA after walking 5 on Friday. It sounds like Kobe Mayo could be up any day now. Orioles GM Mike Elias said Mayo is, quote, very close and will help us this year. And in the minors, a .310 batting average, 22 homers, a 1038 OPS, and has done a much better job lowering the strikeout rate recently. I think before he went on the IL with that rib injury, Kobe Mayo in the minors, his strikeout rate was around 30%. It's down to 24%. So he's made up some big ground, 47% rostered, big power. I think he's number 1 in Scott's top prospects to stash right now, and I think that makes a ton of sense. Adding some insult to injury, Chris, I know you saw this one. The Marlins outfielder Dane Myers suffered a fractured left ankle kicking the clubhouse door Saturday and will miss 6 to 8 weeks, which is unfortunate because he has an opportunity to play right now, and now he's kind of threw that away. We had a trade. The Nationals traded Hunter Harvey to the Royals in exchange for minor leaguer Caden Wallace and the 39th overall pick in the MLB draft. My guess is that James MacArthur will remain the Royals closer. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's just insurance and an opportunity to, bolster the bullpen for an unexpected playoff run. They gave up a lot, though. I mean, this was like Caden Wallace is a top 10 guy in their system, and then they gave up the 39th overall pick, which is, not a guaranteed prospect by any means, but should be a top 12 to 15 guy organizationally. That's a lot for a year and a half of a good reliever. So I don't know. Maybe they do view him as certainly a potential closer. I don't think he's just going to take the job from James MacArthur, but gives them, a pretty obvious alternative if MacArthur struggles.
Other players who went to the IL this weekend: Luis Medina with a right elbow sprain, Carson Spires with a right shoulder impingement. He said he's only expected to miss 1 start, but I don't know. Right shoulder impingement, that's usually a little bit longer. Jose Trevino with a left quad strain. Carlos Narvaez was recalled. And I do wonder if Ben Rice gets some looks at catcher moving forward. Some waiver wire hitters from the weekend. We already spoke about Rece Hinds. What about these middle infielders? Colt Keith, the guy continues to crush it right now. 3 for 4 with his 9th home run, 4 RBI on Saturday. in July, he's batting .370. He's got 5 homers, a 1267 OPS. He's been serviceable against lefties, so I think he's going to play every day moving forward. 65% rostered. And the other name is Zach Geloff. He homered in back-to-back games on Saturday and Sunday. Last 23 games, he's only batting .241, but 7 homers, 19 RBI, 4 steals. He's 55% rostered. Chris, who would you rather have, Colt Keith or Zach Geloff?
Might be format specific.
I think
might be just Keith and head-to-head points, or OBP and Zach Geloff anywhere else. He's like, Geloff has played 145 games at the major league level. He's got 26 homers, 25 stolen bases. He's hit .235. That sounds like a pretty reasonable expectation for Zach Geloff, and that's a super valuable player. It's just there might be some, let's say, peaks and valleys along the way.
When you strike out 35% of the time, I think, that's definitely fair to say.
And that's the problem, is like the hot streak is .241 batting average. That's tough to get around.
Yeah. And it's all supported by the underlying metrics too. A 17% swinging strike rate, 74% zone contact. I mean, those are some pretty bad underlying plate discipline numbers for Zach Geloff, but power and speed, that I do think that he will provide. What about if you need a corner infielder? I would say, in a 12-team roto league, maybe even deeper than that, 2 names that are hot right now. Eugenio Suarez has picked things up last 8 games, batting .345 with 4 homers and 14 RBI. And Michael Toglia, 3 for 4 with a triple dong on Sunday. I think we had 3 different players with 3 homer games this weekend. It's something crazy like that. But Michael Toglia, 3 homer game on Sunday. He has 6 homers over his last 6 games. And over his last 28 games, so basically the past month, .220 batting average, 12 homers, 21 RBI, 2 steals, 94.2 average exit velocity for Michael Toglia. Chris, who would you prefer as a corner infield ad, Suarez or Toglia?
This might be cheating, but I believe the Rockies play 6 games at home to open the second half. So I'll just take Michael Toglia, because I don't think you're going to want either of them on your roster for much longer than any given week. And Toglia's at home. So that I'll just go with that.
Fair enough. What about in deeper leagues? We already spoke about Lawrence Butler. Some other names that stood out this weekend. Jose Iglesias, now with the Mets, 2 for 4 with a double dong on Friday. Doesn't usually hit for much power. 4 for 4 with 2 runs on Sunday. The problem is that he's only started 3 of the past 6 games for the Mets. Crow Armstrong had a huge game on Sunday. 2 for 3 with 2 socks and a shoe. That's 2 home runs and 1 steal in a game. He's up to 3 homers, 17 steals. He started 6 straight games. And Xavier Edwards for the Marlins has started to pick things up. He had 6 hits this weekend, including 2 steals on Sunday. He has started 12 straight. Any of these names stand out, Chris, in the deepest of leagues? Jose Iglesias, Crow Armstrong, and Xavier Edwards.
If you are in a league that gives extra points for Billboard #1 singles on the Latin digital song sales chart,
I saw this.
Jose Iglesias does have a minor hit under his pseudonym Candelita.
I think 2 weeks ago, the Mets won a game on Friday night.
Yeah, he performed after the game.
And they just had like an impromptu concert. They just handed him a microphone and they let him sing to everybody. It was insane.
I love it. No, I don't have much interest in Jose Iglesias as a fantasy baseball player. I think Crow Armstrong and Xavier Edwards are much more interesting. Crow Armstrong is one of those guys, like, from both a real life and fantasy perspective, if he hits a little bit, if he's like 10% worse than league average as a hitter, he might be like a 5-win player in real life, just because of how good his defense and base running is. And obviously for fantasy, the 17 stolen bases in much less than a full season, I think, speaks to that as well. It's just he had 1 homer before this game. So it's hard to buy too much into him. Xavier Edwards, though, famously a slap blank hitter or slap blank prospect when the Rays traded for him. That was Blake Snell's term for him. He's slapping it right now. He's hitting .352. I think it's like 5 multi-hit games in the last 8 or something. He's been really hot lately. He's got speed. I do think in 15-team Roto League, Xavier Edwards is worth a look.
Yeah. No, I like that too. What do you think the threshold has to be? Like if Pete Crow Armstrong can hit 220 or 230, then he can be a usable player in a 5 outfielder league. Do you think it needs to be higher than that?
I think 230-ish is probably right. Like that's hurting you, but it's not killing you. For a guy with, really at this point, one standout skill. He hit for some power in the minors as well. So, that's something to keep an eye on. But no, I think you're just hoping he's not killing you in batting average and can steal a bunch of bases.
All right, let's take our final break. And when we return, we will talk waiver wire pitchers from the weekend right after this.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
Welcome back in. Let's talk waiver wire pitchers. And the first group includes Gavin Williams, who was at Tampa Bay this weekend. 5 innings, 2 runs, 1 earned, but 3 walks to only 2 strikeouts. Ben Lively bounced back with a solid start at Tampa Bay. 5 1/3, 2 runs allowed with 7 strikeouts. And Sean Manaea, another quality start up against the Rockies. 7 innings, 3 runs, 9 strikeouts. Over his last 6 starts, he has a 2.02 ERA, a .98 whip. Spencer Schwellenbach, a strong start at the Padres, 7 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts. He only had 4 whiffs, but this is back-to-back starts of at least 6 innings, just 1 earned run in each of those for Spencer Schwellenbach. Chris, how would you rank this group? Schwellenbach, Manaea, Ben Lively, and Gavin Williams.
I guess I would go Gavin Williams ahead of Schwellenbach, but that's the clear top tier for me. And then I think there's a pretty pronounced drop-off where both Lively and Manaea were, I believe, 2-star pitchers this week, and I think that explains most of why they're in the 70% range. I don't see much reason to think Manaea or Lively is much more than a streamer, whereas I think I have Williams ranked higher. I might actually be more optimistic about Schwellenbach at this point. He's got, I think it's 4 quality starts in his last 6. The strikeouts for the most part have been pretty solid lately. They weren't great in this one, but if Schwellenbach can figure out a way to generate strikeouts more consistently, and he does have that 44% whiff rate on his splitter, I do think he could put together a really nice second half. Now, Williams, I think, is the more talented pitcher, but what we've seen from him has just been incredibly discouraging. The decision to swap out the slider for the cutter, whatever the thought process behind it is, and I would guess it's just a comfort thing coming off the elbow injury. He just doesn't feel comfortable throwing the slider, but it's made him a significantly worse pitcher. The cutter is doing an okay job generating weak-ish contact, but it's not generating any whiffs at all, which leaves him with only the curveball generating whiffs right now. The 4-seamer hasn't really been there for him. And so I don't know. I don't want to give up on Gavin Williams because I do think he's talented, but I don't know if this current approach can work. So Schwellenbach I might have more confidence in, even if Williams I think has more upside.
I agree. I think it's really close, and I know I had Gavin Williams as either a sleeper or a breakout heading into the second half. That was before he returned and before we knew that he wasn't going to be throwing his slider. Mm-hmm. And I think that really changes the calculation here. I was going to say the same thing as you. I think maybe this elbow injury in the back of his mind, he is thinking, all right, well, I can't just kind of spam the slider like I did last year. Or even with Garrett Cole, we saw something similar. Like he's not using his slider as much either. So 2 guys coming back from elbow injuries, I think that makes sense. So it's really close. I think I would still give a slight edge to Gavin Williams, the prospect pedigree there. But Spencer Schwellenbach, a 12.2% swinging strike rate so far. I think there are more strikeouts to come. So I'm pretty excited about him.
And 3.53 xERA for the season now. I know the actual ERA is not quite as good, but there's a lot to like here, I think.
Would you drop Christian Scott for any of those names? He had a rough start this weekend up against the Rockies. Should be a good matchup, but 4 1/3, 3 runs allowed. He gave up 2 homers in that start, 4.36 ERA. Would you drop Scott for Any of those names?
Again, because I'm not all that interested in Shamanaya or Ben Lively, it might just depend on what the next matchup for all three of those guys looks like and who has the best one, which we don't quite know yet because teams haven't set their rotations. So right now, I would not. If Williams or Schwellenbach were available, I'd be okay dropping Christian Scott. But I'm very disappointed in Christian Scott. Sounded like a dad when I said that.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I'm not mad. But like, there aren't a ton of great pitching options available on the wire right now. Like River Ryan, we don't know what the role is going to be. Yariel Rodriguez hasn't thrown more than 85 pitches. Herman Marquez, I thought looked okay, but again, not someone we're excited about. So while I'm inclined to be willing to drop Christian Scott, I don't know if there's a lot of guys I would actually do it for him.
Herman Marquez. What's dead may never die.
Yeah, he's back.
I have not heard that name in a long time.
Curveball and slider looked really good today, actually, and the velocity was up. It was his first start back from Tommy John. It wasn't a great start, but it was nice to see him back. Also, I believe became the Rockies' all-time leader in strikeouts. Start.
Would you look at that?
There you go.
Let's continue on. Waiver wire pitchers part 2. Jose Soriano turned in a quality start up against the Mariners. 6 innings, 1 run, had 5 strikeouts, 16 whiffs on 87 pitches. Lance Lynn, a quality start up against the Cubs. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. He had 18 whiffs on 99 pitches. 16 of those came on the fastball. And Spencer Arrighetti, a quality start up against the Rangers. 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, 15 whiffs on 85 pitches. I think there's a pitcher there with Arrighetti. It might take longer term for him to figure out the control because that has been a big problem. But under the hood, I mean, he has like 2 really good whiff pitches and velocity is solid. So I think there could be a pitcher, but yeah, the consistency has been hard to come by. Any interest in those names, Chris? Arrighetti, Lance Lynn, and Jose Soriano?
I think Arrighetti is the most interesting of them, and I agree with everything you said. He's not a finished product by any means yet, but I think there's an interesting skill set there. He throws hard. The secondaries have all shown some swing and miss potential, so it's been so volatile, right? We've seen like multiple really, really good strikeout efforts from him, and then we've seen just some absolute duds, and it doesn't really seem like. Has he put together 2 good starts in a row yet? I'm not even sure if we've seen that from Arrighetti yet. So I'm, has not. I guess the most recent 2. One was 5 innings, 2 earned runs. One was 6 innings, 1 earned run. Yeah. That's the best 2-start stretch we've seen from Arrighetti. So yeah, consistency has been a real issue, but he's certainly the most intriguing talent of this group.
The only thing I'll add on Jose Soriano is if you play in a points league, he is a SPARP, so he has that RP eligibility. Kind of does the poor man's Framber Valdez where it's not a lot of strikeouts, it's bad control, but 60% ground ball rate. So, you can squeak out some good starts getting ground balls as often as Jose Soriano does. And waiver wire pitchers part 3, Kyle Hendricks pitched well at the Cardinals. He threw 7 shutout innings with 3 strikeouts. Luis Ortiz of the Pirates, I think he's pretty interesting too. At the White Sox, 5 2/3, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. His four-seam fastball looks pretty good. The slider looks like a good pitch too. And he's pitching well lately for the Pirates. Gilbert Diaz, also of the D-backs, their prospect they recently called up. That's back-to-back starts, 6 innings of 1 earned run or less. And he was at home against the Blue Jays this weekend, where he threw the 6 innings, 1 run, only 2 strikeouts in this one. Did give up some hard contact, but anything stands out here, Chris? I mean, this is more deeper league stuff, but in those 15 teamers, were you putting bids in on Gilbert Diaz or Luis Ortiz?
Yeah, Gilbert Diaz, I think is somewhat interesting, but probably not a difference maker. Probably the same for Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz is doing some interesting things, like you mentioned. The quality of contact has been really good so far this season. That's a big improvement from last year when he just got crushed and was walking everybody. Maybe the increased cutter usage is playing a part in that because his fastballs just got destroyed last year. All in all, I think, I don't know if Diaz has enough swing and miss here to be much more than a lower end streamer, but it's interesting. The stuff looks good. It certainly passes the eye test when you watch him. So I think he's a little more interesting than Yolbert Diaz. And then one thing to note moving forward, just in case this matchup comes again, I saw like 2 different Cardinals writers, like beat writers and one beat writer, one blogger, who basically said something like the Cardinals just need to sign Kyle Hendricks so they don't have to face him, because I guess he just owns them. And yeah, something to keep in mind the next time Kyle Hendricks places the Cardinals for our streamer not to stream segment.
Luis Ortiz, by the way, did want to point out his last 4 games, 3 of those being starts, 137 ERA, a .81 whip, over a strikeout per inning, 49% ground ball rate, 14% swinging strike rate. So again, in those deeper leagues, I would be adding Luis Ortiz and just let's see where it goes from here. Some pitchers who are slowing down. I mentioned Ranger Suarez. Perhaps this is due to him dealing with his back injury, but over his last 3 starts, he has started to slow down. An 8.62 ERA, a 1.85 whip. Walks have been a problem, not getting swinging strikes during that stretch. Nick Lodolo, over his last 3 starts, a 6.23 ERA, a 1.69 whip. Jake Irvin, back-to-back starts, allowing 6 earned runs. He was at the Brewers this weekend where he only went 4 innings, 7 runs, 6 of those earned. He's given up 4 home runs total over his last 2 starts as well. And Zach Gallen, as soon as I trade for him in Tout Wars, I guess. Thanks, Zach Gallen. But 3 rough starts in a row. He faced the Blue Jays this weekend, 3 2/3, 7 runs, 6 of those earned. And in July, a 9 ERA on the nose, a 1.92 whip, 9 strikeouts to 5 walks over 13 innings. Any actual concern here, Chris? Gallen, Jake Irvin, Nick Lodolo, Ranger Suarez, all slowing down lately.
So I think with Suarez and to a lesser extent, Irvin, I think the biggest thing here is just what we talked about early in the season when we talked about Ranger Suarez, which was like, we didn't really identify an obvious explanation for why he was pitching so well, right? Like he wasn't throwing significantly harder. He didn't add a new pitch. His pitch movement profiles were more or less the same. And so my take was always, okay, he's just pitching really well. And that's not to say it was a fluke. Like there are distinct things that we talk about when we talk about unsustainable production, right? We talk about guys that I just clearly they're in over their head. And I would throw a Ronaldo Lopez in that discussion where it's just the skill set doesn't match the results. With Ranger Suarez, and I think Jurickson Profar is another example of this, they are earning what they were doing in the first half of the season. It was just, do I expect them to continue to pitch as well as they were? That's where it's like, Ranger Suarez, I didn't buy the strikeout rate improvements. I just didn't see a good read. Like that was where, for me with Ranger Suarez, it was always, there was going to be some regression, even though I wanted to be clear that I didn't think it was luck. He was pitching really well, and it was hard. It was always going to be hard for him to sustain that. Lodolo, entering this start, he had lowered his curveball usage in his previous couple of starts, which was a little concerning because that's been by far his best swing and miss pitch. That wasn't the case in this one. So I don't know how concerned about that we should be. I think it was probably just a little bit of the same thing where he's just not pitching well. Irvin, I think he's just a guy, and like that's another one where the control especially was so good early on in a way that has gotten away from him a bit. I don't necessarily think we need to drop Jake Irvin in all formats, but I never necessarily bought into him as a difference maker.
Mm-hmm. I think this is part natural regression too. I mean, Jake Irvin, even with, allowing 12 earned runs over his last 2 starts, he's up to a 3.49 ERA. That seems pretty normal that, obviously we don't want it all to come in just 2 starts, but it's more likely that Jake Irvin is like a high 3s ERA the rest of the season than the low 3s ERA he was for the first 3 months of the season, basically. With Zach Gallen, I will just point out, he has a 3.87 ERA overall. It's a 3.40 FIP and a 3.41 xFIP. I think if anyone's panicking, which they probably aren't, I think Gallen, you can make the case as like a fair buy low. if you can even buy low. I don't know how realistic it is, but
yeah, I mean, he's someone who has done a pretty good job of outperforming his peripherals over the past couple of seasons anyway. So like, the fact that his FIP is right around a little better than his actual mark right now. So I think that's an optimistic sign. Where was his velocity in this one? Because it was up a lot when he first came back from the injury. Yeah, it's still averaging 94 miles per hour with his fastball. That's still pretty good. Just total lack of whiffs with this one. I don't know if he didn't have the feel for the curveball.
Yeah, that was it.
But
his curveball didn't do anything in this. He got 0 whiffs on his curveball, a 7% CSW.
Oh, yeah, 1 called strike on 14 pitches. He just didn't have the feel for that pitch at all. Threw it in the strike zone twice on 14 pitches, it looks like. So yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah. We did get some encouraging starts this weekend from pitchers that needed them. Garrett Cole turned in his first quality start in 5 tries. He was at the Orioles, of all places, a tough matchup, but a team that has been scuffling lately, I guess. 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. He had 13 whiffs on 106 pitches. Luis Heel, his teammate, makes it 2 strong starts in a row. Also at the Orioles, 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. He had 15 whiffs on 95 pitches and leaned all the way into the slider, made it his most used pitch in this start. And Blake Snell was nearly untouchable up against the Twins on Sunday. Maybe this is the start of that Blake Snell run that we usually get annually. 7 shutout innings, only 1 hit allowed, 8 strikeouts. He had 21 whiffs on 80 pitches. He was awesome. Chris, anything to add on Snell, Heel, and Garrett Cole?
I mean, I'm glad I got that immaculate inning from Michael Kopech when I started him over Blake Snell and TGFBI. That was, at least I had that. No, look, there was no way you could start Blake Snell before we saw it from him, given how bad he had been this season. But we always believed it was coming. We've seen he's been one of the most volatile pitchers in baseball, but the end results are always pretty good, usually great. And we know that as bad as things can get, he can turn them around very, very quickly. So Dylan Cease will absolutely be in my starting lineup next week. And I do expect him to more or less be great. Interesting. He only threw, I think, 1 slider in this one, just completely ditched it. And he's a tinkerer. I think a lot of it just comes down to what he's feeling in any given week, day, month, year. He changes his approach depending on, some ineffable quality of the pitch on any given day. I don't know, but yeah, he's, I fully expect Blake Snell to be excellent moving forward. Slider, actually the key for the key discussion point for all 3 of these guys. Luis Heel threw a ton of sliders, 39% in this one, doubled his rate. It was really good. I don't know how sustainable that is because that's also come with an increased zone rate. I think he was 42% zone rate in the month of June when he was having trouble throwing strikes. It was like 49% in May. It's 49% so far in July. So I think that's a good sign. And then Cole, he got 5 whiffs with the slider. So at least it worked. It looked like Garrett Cole's slider. Just he hasn't been using it nearly as much. He's basically just traded sliders for cutters. And I'm hopeful that as he continues to work his way back and feels a little more confident, he gets back to throwing the slider a bit more, because I think that's a bad trade for Garrett Cole, trading sliders for cutters. But the fact that the slider was working in this one, I think, is a good sign.
Any concern for Cole Ragans? Now, this might sound confusing because he's coming off an awesome start at the Red Sox this weekend. 7 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. He had 23 whiffs on 102 pitches. He was truly dominant. The problem is that his fastball was down quite a bit in this start. Fastball down 1.9 miles per hour. The cutter was down almost 3 miles per hour for Cole Ragans. The velocity has been down overall 3 starts in a row. Mm-hmm. And that fastball, 93.9 miles per hour, that was a season low. Now, it didn't matter. He was still awesome. So maybe he's someone that, the stuff and the movement on his pitches is so good that it doesn't really matter if he fluctuates like 2-3 miles per hour. But we also haven't seen him kind of hold up over the course of a full season. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, Chris, what are your thoughts on Cole Ragans? Would you maybe try and look, if you're cashing out, you got to get something really, really good. But what do you think?
I mean, look, I'm the guy who said Chris Sale might be a sell high candidate last week, so I'm not opposed to the idea of moving a pitcher who's having a great run, who I think is a great pitcher, and I think Cole Ragans is a great pitcher. But yeah, I think it's fair to just wonder how he's going to hold up the rest of the way, given how many injuries he's had, given how rarely he's pitched into this part of the season. But I don't know. We're talking about a guy who's legitimately got a 5-pitch arsenal. Like, this is not like, well, he throws 5 pitches, but one's a sinker and one's a force. Like, I don't really count that as 5 separate pitches, right? Maybe that's, me being a dummy, but that's he throws 5 distinct pitches. And I think he's the kind of pitcher who, if the fastball's not working or the velocity's down, that changeup is one of the best pitches in baseball. In terms of swings and misses, and the cutter's gotten excellent results in the slot. So I think Cole Ragans has enough weapons where I'm not too worried about it, but obviously just at a high level, I think it's reasonable to wonder how Cole Ragans is going to pitch the rest of the way. It's just not something I think is actionable.
Let's slide over to some hitters, and James Wood, we haven't talked about him in a while. Just how have we judged him so far? He's 14 games into his career. He's batting .245 with 1 homer, 2 steals, 2 caught stealing, a .654 OPS. He has 6 walks to 20 strikeouts, a 33% strikeout rate. He's hitting the ball hard, a 74% ground ball rate. So how would you judge what we've seen so far, Chris, from James Wood?
More or less what I think we should have expected, which is obvious skills and obvious limitations. And while I'm not necessarily sure expecting a 70%, 74% ground ball rate is necessarily what I would have gone with, but given his size, given how many moving parts there are in his swing, that's not a terribly surprising outcome. Like, just hitting a lot of hard grounders. So I don't know. I didn't necessarily think James Wood was going to step on the field and be a superstar right away. It was within the realm of possibility, and it was worth chasing on waivers just in case. And I still think that is within the realm of possibility here. But, I'm not necessarily sure you should expect him to be a difference maker moving forward. It's, he seems a little late. That's been my main takeaway whenever I watch James Wood, is everything just feels half a tick slow. And once he catches up, I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. If I picked him up, I know some people might be disappointed from what they got so far, just based on the hype around a top prospect getting called up. I absolutely would still hold on, though.
Yeah.
Even in 3 outfielder leagues.
There's no way I'm dropping.
I'm not dropping James Wood for Rece Hinds, let's say.
No. I would hope I have someone more boring.
Mm-hmm. Some hitters who are picking things up so far in July. Julio Rodriguez, 3 for 5 with his 10th home run on Friday, 2 for 3 with an RBI on Saturday. And so far in the month, batting .447 with 3 homers, 1 steal, a .1263 OPS. Corbin Carroll had 2 steals on Friday. He had 2 homers on Saturday. He's only batting .208 in July, but 3 homers, 13 runs, 4 steals. All right. I mean, we're looking for positive signs. I guess.
For sure. This is one of those situations where anything positive I can get out of Corbin Carroll. I mean, I'm going to be the person who, if Corbin Carroll still has a 600 OPS, am I underrating him? No, 635. Okay. If he still has a 600 OPS on September 27th, he's probably still going to be on my team. That's the kind of, that's the way I view these things. And it drags me down in some leagues. I can be stubborn when it comes to a player like that. It is worth noting the homers weren't exactly crushed. They were 103 and 98 miles per hour. So, still not quite slugging yet, but I'm going to go down with the Corbin Carroll ship.
All right. Alec Burleson hit 2 more homers this weekend. And
in our faces.
In July, he's batting .340 with 5 homers, 15 RBI, 2 steals, and a .1041 OPS. Marcus Semien turning things back up. He, over his last 8 games, batting .367 with 2 homers. Alex Bregman over his last 10, batting .341 with 3 homers and 10 RBI. And Willy Adames, he had a really bad June. He has picked things back up in July, 4 for 4 with his 15th home run, 4 RBI on Sunday. And so far in the month, batting .353, 2 homers, 13 RBI, 2 steals, a .962 OPS. Anything else you wanted to mention here, Chris? Burleson, Semien, Bregman, and Adames.
I couldn't imagine being concerned about Marcus Semien. We've seen enough from him slow start wise that he inevitably pulls together that I honestly haven't even thought about Marcus Semien, even though he's been on such a slow 3 months. Because I have so much faith in him figuring it out.
And I feel like he did something like this last year too, and then he got really hot.
Mm-hmm. It's every year. Yeah. Because it's one of those skill sets where he does not have great raw power. He does not hit the ball especially hard. And so the difference between the good version of Marcus Semien and the frustrating slumping version of Marcus Semien might just be like a fly ball to left field flying 8 feet further and being a home run rather than a warning track out, but he does it so consistently. The end of year numbers are so consistently excellent that I just can't bring myself to be concerned about it.
I wasn't concerned either, but I think at some point, one of these years, one of these slow starts is going to turn into something more. He is turning 34 years old in September, right? So
I will just say, being optimistic about Marcus Semien has been way more profitable than being skeptical of him for the last half decade. Because 2020, he was really bad, right?
Let's see. Yeah, 2020 is 679 OPS. And then next year, he hit 45 homers.
Yeah, it's going to end at some point. But betting on that guy and being on the more optimistic side of things with Marcus Semien has been wildly profitable for a long time now.
The one thing I am pretty certain he's going to be a letdown in this year, at least, is steals, because he only has 3 steals. And since Bruce Bochy has taken over for the Rangers, they just do not run as much as previously. I think it was under Chris Woodward. So, they're just not as aggressive. And
he's still plenty fast.
I think he's capable of running. I just don't know why he doesn't. Some leftovers from the weekend. We will start off with pitching part 1. Tarek Skubal dominated the Dodgers, 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts, 14 whiffs on 101 pitches. Dylan Cease was masterful against the Braves. He threw 6 shutout innings, 11 strikeouts, 27 whiffs on 106 pitches. Logan Gilbert, dominant at the Angels, 7 shutout with 9 strikeouts there. And Taj Bradley continues to pitch well. He was up against the Guardians, where he threw 7 shutout with 8 strikeouts. Chris, anything to add on Taj, Gilbert, Cease, and Skubal?
Seems like business as usual for Skubal and Gilbert, so no concerns there. Not that there would be concerns coming off very good starts, actually. So that was a weird way to put it. Dylan Cease, obviously he's been super inconsistent throughout his career, and I've been notably pretty vocal about my lack of faith in him in the past, but his recent struggles, it was like a 6 ERA in June or something. He was really bad, but it never really came with a loss of control. And that's always been the big thing for Dylan Cease. He has by far the best walk rate of his career this season. And as long as that's not the issue, I'm going to believe in Dylan Cease. You mentioned 27 whiffs as if that was impressive. I think the thing that was actually impressive, 26 on the fastball and slider. It was just, here's what you're getting, Atlanta. Do something with it. And they could not. He was outstanding. And then Taj Bradley, it's interesting. His quality of contact overall for the season remains pretty poor. But since he's gone to the more splitter heavy approach, that has turned around at least a little bit. And the strikeout rate is up from last season. The walk rate has held steady. And with the improved quality of contact metrics, I really do think he's going to be just a must-start fantasy pitcher moving forward.
Last 7 starts for Taj Bradley, 1.07 ERA, 1.02 WHIP, 11.4 K per 9, 13.3% swinging strike rate. So
pretty good.
I'm not saying he's an ace, but those are ace numbers over his last 7 starts. Pitching leftovers part 2. Hunter Brown bounced back with another quality start up against the Rangers. 6 innings, 2 runs. He had 5 strikeouts. Cutter Crawford was awesome against the Royals. He threw 7 shutout with 4 strikeouts there. Nathan Eovaldi, a strong start at the Astros. 7 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. And Ryan Pepio had a strong start up against the Guardians. 6 shutout with 4 strikeouts. That fastball was back on track. Accounted for 6 of his 12 whiffs. Anything on Pepio, Eovaldi, Cutter Crawford, and Hunter Brown?
I can't figure out Pepio. It's just like I remain just optimistic, but I don't necessarily know if I believe in him as a must-start pitcher moving forward. His roster rate has remained remarkably steady despite a pretty frustrating season, 86%. So I think that's good. Good process on the listeners and players' parts, but I don't know if I buy him like putting it all together just yet, but I'm hopeful. And then Eovaldi, just I feel like we know what it is. As long as he's 100% and he's healthy, he's going to be really good. It's just every year it kind of falls apart on him, and it's just keep an eye on the velocity readings, keep an eye on any reports about him getting skipped a day or two, and just ride it as long as it works.
Pitching leftovers part 3. Jesse Pinkman told us that Andrew Abbott can't keep getting away with it, and guess what? He didn't get away with it this time up against the Marlins. 3 1/3 innings, 5 runs allowed, 2 homers allowed for Andrew Abbott, who overall still has a 3.39 ERA and a 1.21 WHIP. And Carlos Rodon had some mixed results at the Orioles. 4 innings, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. Continues to rack up the whiffs, 16 whiffs on 98 pitches. And he changed the pitch mix. He led with the slider, 41% usage. He lowered the fastball usage, and it was much better. It did not get crushed in this start, but I mean, you see the line. He wasn't efficient, so I don't really know what to do with it. Any thoughts, Chris, on Rodon and Andrew Abbott? The 2 pitchers we talk about most.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I'm going to say about Abbott. We've been expecting this all along, and it's similar to the Ranger Suarez discussion where it wasn't a fluke because he was generating a lot of weak contact. It was just really, really hard to buy him continuing to do that to the extent that he had. So that I think I've said it multiple times. I think it's more likely you're dropping Andrew Abbott than you're starting him the rest of the way. Rodon, I don't know, man. It's at least he avoided the disastrous first inning in this one, but you know, that's where the bar is right now. You know, we talked about Corbin Carroll and just looking for reasons to be optimistic. I think that's still where we're at with Carlos Rodon, where it's so frustrating because the fastball looks the same. And it's got to be so frustrating for him to feel like the fastball is the same. I can still dial it up. I can still throw it past these guys. And he can't. And I think he did realize in this one that he has to rely on it less. He's talked about it a lot, having to do that and make those adjustments. The question is, can the command still be there while doing that? There's going to be good starts moving forward, but I don't think Carlos Rodon's going to give us ace level production consistently.
Some hitting leftovers from the weekend. Aaron Judge hit 2 more home runs, and he set the Yankees franchise record with 34 home runs before the All-Star break. He also has 85 RBI, 306 batting average, 433 on base, and an 1112 OPS.
That's a pretty good season.
That's a really good season.
Like 34 homers and 85 RBI. That's like, if you're a leadoff hitter, that's pretty good.
It's awesome. Speaking of awesome, Brenton Doyle, 2 more homers this weekend over his last 16 games. He's batting .362 with 9 homers, 17 RBI, 2 steals, hitting the ball extremely hard. Marcell Ozuna, 2 for 4 with a double dong on Friday. Shohei Ohtani had a monster game on Saturday, 2 for 4 with a sock and a shoe, his 29th home run, his 23rd steal. Luis Robert is picking things up last 5 games. He has 6 hits, 1 homer, and 4 steals. Brent Rooker is red hot. He hit a home run on Saturday. He had 2 more on Sunday. And over his last 17 games, Brent Rooker is batting .426 with 8 homers, 18 RBI, and 3 steals. Trey Turner, I mean, the guy he's come back. He's a slugger all of a sudden. 24 games since returning, batting .356 with 9 homers, 22 runs, 23 RBI, and 2 steals. And Rafael Devers ended his first half in style, 2 for 4 with a home run on Saturday, and then 2 for 4 with a very long home run. I didn't see it, but I saw some kind of headline that he destroyed a seat in Fenway Park or something crazy like that. So anything you'd like to add, Chris, on this group?
Who was the Rockies All-Star?
Is it not Brendan Doyle?
I don't think Brendan Doyle made the All-Star team, but I like if he didn't, he should have.
Yeah,
because he's been awesome.
that seems weird.
I don't know who else it would have been, so I'm kind of confused right now. Ryan McMahon,
which he's had a good season, but
Brendan Doyle, I mean,
yeah,
I guess he's gotten really hot the last couple of weeks and has hit like half of his homers for the season, more than that over the last 2 weeks.
True.
But he's arguably the best defensive outfielder in baseball. He's having a really good season.
Yeah. One of the biggest breakouts.
Yeah, no, it's kind of the Pete Crow Armstrong thing, where if he takes that kind of step forward as a hitter, you're talking about a potential star. Not necessarily expecting that from Pete Crow Armstrong, but if he did, that's what it would look like.
Yep. Some bullpen updates from the weekend for the Tigers on Friday. Jason Foley entered with 2 outs in the 8th inning, 2 runners on. In a 1-run game, he gave up a game-tying RBI single to Teoscar Hernandez. He took his 3rd blown save. For the Dodgers on Friday, this Evan Phillips usage is really weird, Chris. They used Evan Phillips in the 6th inning, down 3-2, facing 7, 8, and 9 in the Tigers lineup. Don't really get it. The Dodgers eventually took the lead. It was Daniel Hudson who got the 9th inning and picked up his 4th save. And then on Saturday, Ricky Vanasco started the 9th inning with a 5-run lead. He gave up 3 straight hits, 2 runs. Evan Phillips then entered with a 3-run lead. He gave up an RBI single, a game-tying home run to Colt Keith. Evan Phillips took his 2nd blown save. I don't really know where this is going or if there's any rhyme or reason. Have you seen anything on Evan Phillips?
No, I don't. That is weird, the Friday appearance, but absent more context, I would think it's just a one-off.
Okay. For the Rays on Friday, Pete Fairbanks was unavailable. It was Jason Adam who struck out the side for his 4th save. And then on Sunday, Pete Fairbanks was back at it. He got the 9th. He gave up 2 hits, but picked up his 17th save. For the Rockies on Sunday, Jalen Beeks got the 8th inning with a 5-run lead. He gave up a single, a walk, an RBI double. He recorded just 1 out. He was relieved by Victor Vodnik, who recorded the final 5 outs for his 2nd save. And I think he has 2 saves in the past 2 weeks, something like that. If you play in the deepest league, NL only, you need saves. Maybe Victor Vodnik becomes a thing. You probably don't want to get involved. But for the Blue Jays on Sunday, Chad Green recorded the final 4 outs for his 6th save. And I will be interested to see, coming out of the All-Star break, if Jimmy Garcia is healthy, where do the Blue Jays go from here in the back end of their bullpen? And then for the Yankees. The Yankees. On Friday, Clay Holmes pitched great. Pitched a clean 9th inning for his 21st save. And then on Sunday, what looked like it would be the best win of the year, Chris, turned into one of the worst losses of the year. Ben Rice hit a 3-run homer off of Craig Kimbrell in the top of the 9th inning. He gave the Yankees a 2-run lead at the time. Clay Holmes entered in the bottom of the 9th. He gave up a single, then a ground out, a walk, and he struck out Gunnar Henderson. There are now 2 outs and 2 runners on. He walked Adley Rutschman to load the bases. There was a routine ground ball hit to Anthony Volpe. He bobbled it, did not get an out. 1 run scores, and then a fly ball hit to left field, which apparently had a 99% catch probability. Alex Verdugo's first step was in. The ball was over his head. He tried to recover. He slipped and fell. The Orioles win, and just an utter disaster. Not necessarily Clay Holmes' fault. Him walking batters was a problem.
Yeah, he didn't pitch well.
But 2 outs that should have been recorded. Oh my God. It's the past month has just been a pretty big disaster for the Yankees. I think if it's up to them, they probably want to go out and trade for a reliever. I don't know if that's Tanner Scott or is it Mason Miller? I've thrown some names out there. I've speculated, but I don't know. I think they need bullpen help. I just don't know who it is.
I think they need help in general right now. I've really appreciated Alex Verdugo just speed running, like going from completely beloved to completely hated by both the Red Sox and Yankees fan bases in the last like 15 months.
Gosh.
Like I remember last June, Red Sox fans were like, he's been one of the best outfielders in baseball. He should be an all-star. We won the Mookie Betts trade. And then earlier this year, it was like, I can't believe the Red Sox gave us Alex Verdugo for nothing. And it's like, nah, man, he's not that good. This is what happens.
He hit that home run in Fenway Park like a month ago, and he's been really bad since then. So
that's how it always starts. Ooh and ah. And then later there's running and screaming.
Yeah.
That's the Alex Verdugo experience.
Yep, and that is the Yankees experience over the past month. So could not get to the All-Star break soon enough. There are no streamers tomorrow because you know why. The Home Run Derby. Enjoy the Home Run Derby. We are here. The first half of the season is in the books. Enjoy the All-Star break. We'll still have content coming your way. A reminder that we will be live at 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow or today when you're listening to this on YouTube. Yeah, I'll be here with the Welsh recapping the first round of the MLB draft, some first-year player draft rankings. But we are going to wrap there. For Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.